Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to summarize the key property strategies available to people and kind of give a very quick snapshot about the pros and cons of each of those strategies. So in my view there are a few here. So buy to let, HMO, commercial conversion, title splitting and service accommodation. And we'll talk about rent to rent as well. So that's 6 of them. So let's get going. So buy to let. What is buy to let? Buy to let is basically you're buying one house or one property, one flat, and you're going to rent it to one family or one person. Typically, you'll need 25% deposit to buy the house. The bank will come, or the surveyor will come and actually value that place, and whatever the value of that place is, you will have to put 25% deposit down and then finance the rest, which is 75% of that property's value. Let's take 100,000, you put 25,000 pound down, you take a mortgage of 75,000. The idea here is that the mortgage is going to cost you a certain amount. Let's say it's, I don't know, £300-400 per month on interest only. Your rent is going to be about £700-800, so there's a margin there. So roughly speaking, whenever I'm assessing or I'm coaching people, I'm talking about £400 is probably the average that you will make per buy to let, give or take, depending on where you are. So that's buy to let. Most landlords will have one or two of those. In fact, I started 23 years ago via that model of buy to let. So bought quite a few, but then realized that actually, it's only making £400 a month. You're putting in quite a lot of money down, but you're not extracting as much value as possible. Why is it good? I think, if you're working like I was over a period of time in corporate companies, I was not relying too much on that as an income, but I was thinking about it over the future. And what happens is in properties, it tends to increase in value. And so people who've got buy to let will see it as a longer term investment, maybe a bit of a pension pot. And the idea was that you could actually also sell it in the future and pay off anything that you've got, like your mortgage or anything like that. So that's buy to let and why people do it. Second is a HMO. So in my view, so after about 10 years of doing buy to let, I then went into HMO, and we went from one HMO of one house, 5 rooms. We've got over 100. We've got hundreds of HMOs now. So what is the difference? So the biggest difference is the cash flow that property will give you. Let's take your typical 3-bed house that you convert into a 5-bed HMO. If you did it as a buy to let, you'll rent that house, let's say for £1,000 a month, a 3-bed house. If you did it as a HMO, you could then charge on average, say £500 per month per room. So that's £2,500 for that same property versus £1,000. But don't forget, you've got cost to pay on that. You've got your cost of mortgage, cost of bills and utilities, cleaning, broadband, management. But let's strip that out, and let's say on average that costs you £1,000 a month. 1,000 to 1,200 quid. So you make 2,500. It costs you around £1,200. So you're better off around £1,300. If you was a buy to let, you'll make a rent of 1,000. Your mortgage might be about 500, and you will be left with 500 as a residual profit. So straight away you can see there's about £800 worth of profit between one buy to let, the other one's a HMO. So that's really what HMO as a strategy brings to property investors. Why? So what's the good thing? What's the pros and cons about it? Well, like I told you, the pros are really, it's the cash flow that you will get out of it for the same asset that you're using. What's the bad bit about it? It's quite regulatory heavy. In fact, it's actually very regulatory heavy, because you have to have certain things that the house has to meet: fire doors, smoke alarms, gas cert, EPC, EICRs. I mean, a lot of it is transferable to buy to let nowadays, but HMO tends to be more highly regulated. Rightly so, because you're putting 5-6 different people in a house, and you need to make sure that the house is safe for people to live on. The other thing is management time is quite a lot, because you're continually having to recycle the amount of people that are actually living in your properties. So you're continually advertising and marketing these properties in and out. So that's really, the challenge with HMOs, which is kind of the management and regulatory and the continual kind of throughput of tenants that come in and out of those properties. But the reward is there. Obviously, the more you have, imagine you're making £1,000 on average. I know we said 800, but let's say you say £1,000 per unit. You buy 10 HMOs over the X amount period of time, you're making £10,000 per month. That's how you can give up your job and start making some decent income via properties. But nothing comes for free or easy. You've got to put the effort in, but it's there to be had. The third one I want to talk about briefly is commercial conversion. People talk about it all the time. We're talking about now there's a big opportunity with planning relaxation, there's permitted development rules, etc., etc. So we can actually get a commercial unit and repurpose them with the right planning and move them from old offices that are not being used, and then get the right planning, or do it under PD rules, permitted development rules, which is basically, it's a pre-approved set of things you can do with that block or that office that you can actually then convert. So you don't have to go for the full planning rigmarole, which can take ages and cost a lot of money. To do that, what you're buying is, you're obviously buying commercial units that you want to convert into residential. The pros is basically the margins, once you've done the conversion, tends to be quite healthy because your profit margin tends to be quite healthy. The cons is it's a lot of work because you've got to buy the right thing at the right price, organize your builders, get your permitted development, or if you need planning, get your planning rules approved. All of those cost money. Plus, if you bought the site on finance or bridge, even worse, you're having to pay that bridge or that finance cost for, let's say, 6 months before you can even begin to start developing. Currently, we are in July 2022. There's a cost of living crisis. There's a supply issue. Cost of materials have almost doubled. Wood's gone crazy. Plaster, all these raw materials have gone really quite high. Plus, on top of that, you've got a labor shortage as well. So then the rate of labor has also increased. So if you're doing commercial conversion right now, your margin used to probably be like this. Now it's about that because you're squeezing that margin even more so. Competition for the sites are also quite heavy as well. So that's property strategy number 3, commercial conversion, and why is it that's good about it and what's not so good about it. The fourth one is title splitting, one of my favorite, and in fact I coach people specifically on this strategy. I've written a book called Grow Your Wealth Through Title Splitting. It's available on Amazon. What is it that I like about it? What is it first? So first of all, title splitting is basically, it's a strategy where you're buying blocks of residential or sometimes mixed use commercial and residential units on one freehold, and you disaggregate them. By doing that, I'm able to add enough value to these blocks of flats that I'm able to recycle, firstly, most of my money out of those blocks, leaving those blocks of residential units in or behind as passive income. So imagine I'm buying something, recently I bought a block of flats for 8 flats for £700,000. I spent something like £100,000 on it to do all the work, refurbishment, disaggregation, legal process, title splitting, and the end value of the disaggregated unit came up to 1.125 million. So I was able to create almost £400,000 worth of value by doing this strategy. And it's an amazing strategy where I teach people how to find those sites, how to buy them, how to recycle them, what kind of works to do with them, and more importantly, how do you then make money out of them. Taking this particular example of these 8 flats, on average 8 units is producing £450 say, per month of profit after you've paid the actual mortgage. So that this property or this block of flats now is netting me £3,200 a month. Don't forget, I've left no money in. So if you want to find out about this specific strategy and how to make money and you build your portfolio, we went from tens to hundreds of properties now by focusing on title splitting as a strategy. Why? Because instead of buying one house, you're buying one block, and instead of buying one unit, you're getting 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 units at a time. It's a brilliant strategy. So please drop me an email, a DM, find out how you can get involved, and I'll tell you about the coaching packages that I offer on this strategy. So that's title splitting. The pros about it: you grow your property portfolio very quickly. You can recycle your funds out in and out quite quickly and quite well, so leaving very little money, if at all, in the deal. So you're generating infinite return on that investment. And more importantly, you are growing your wealth very quickly because you're bulking out quite quickly. Also, you're not having to do physical conversions and planning and all of those rigmarole, which cost time and money. My biggest thing is about velocity of capital turnover. So the quicker you can turn around and turn over that money, the more you can make with that same amount of money. We all run out of money at some point, but if you've got, let's say, £500,000, and instead of using it for one deal a year, we can show you how to do it at least two times, if not more, and taking the same money to buy the next block, you can get more passive income being built very quickly. So that's title splitting. The hard bit about it is it's complex. It's quite expensive as an entry point, but those things I can coach you of how to get over these things, so you are able to buy properties that meet the criteria. So that's title splitting. The fifth one is service accommodation. Service accommodation is basically where you're buying the property. So go back to the buy to let. Instead of renting that house to one family, you are renting it as a holiday let. So instead of charging, say, £1,000 a month, you are able to charge, let's say, £100 a night. It's in a nice area, people want to go there on holiday or whatever else. You're able to then, let's say you rent that place out, you'll need to rent it out at a minimum 10 nights to cover that 1 month rent of £1,000. So anything above that, you start making some decent profit out of it. Let's say you did manage to rent it, and I want to talk about what's the bad thing about it. But let's say you were renting it for 20 nights in a month. That's £2,000 a month. Which is basically double the amount of rent that you will get if you were renting it to one family at £1,000. What's the pros about it? It's exactly that. The cash flow can be quite lucrative. What's the bad thing about it? It's hard work. You've got to continually be on top of it to rent it, get it serviced, making sure that the turnaround, the cleaning schedule is good, the feedback of guests are very high. You're then on platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, Sky Cottages, or all those kind of holiday let type of websites. So it is lucrative. It is a good idea. You can maximize more of your money of that property than a buy to let, but it comes with a lot of hard work, and rightly so, because nothing is gained with that hard work. So just bear that in mind, that it takes a lot of coordination. But if you've got the right product and you hit the sweet spot that people want to pay for, that's great. The last one I'm going to conclude here is rent to rent. Now, loads of people go on about rent to rent, and yes, I think if you've got no money, you've got nothing to invest, you probably could go down that route where you are basically coming to people like me. I mean, I don't throw out my properties at all, but landlord with one house, you can say, look, you're getting £1,000. I'm going to guarantee you 1,100 quid for the next 5 years. You take a lease on that property. It's quite risky for you, but and especially if you don't know what you're doing. But if you've got some experience, the idea is you can rent their house and then you pay them their 1,100 quid. You then rent it out as a service accommodation, even as a HMO. So you use that asset into another way to justify paying the person 1,100 quid, but then you are also then making enough profit for you to be able to keep as money for yourself. So rent to rent that's exactly what it is. You're renting somebody's property out and then you rent it out to other people. You don't hold the asset, and I think that's my issue here. So the pros is you can get into property quite quickly by doing that, and finding one or two of these landlords that are willing to let you have their property and you're guaranteeing their rent. The bad thing about this rent to rent strategy is, for me, in my view, is yes, you can make cash flow out of it straight away, but after 5 years, if that was me, I would say, okay, thank you very much, I'll have my property back. My property has now almost increased 50% in value. You have nothing. So you've kept the cash flow, and as long as hopefully you're using that cash flow to do something tangible in property with it, otherwise you're left with no asset. And that's why my biggest issue with rent to rent is the investor, you don't have anything to fall back on in the future. While property prices are rising, you are losing because you don't hold the asset. Anyway, hope that helps you, and check out all my other videos on all the social media. I'll post a link on my books as well here. If you're interested, DM me around property coaching, and I'll see you at the next video.